Hello, everyone, and welcome to Engage. My name is Anna, and today we are going to talk about collaboration fundamentals when working in your Smartsheet. Before we dive into all that, we do, of course, have to pull up our legal slide and cover a couple bases that might be familiar for you at this point. So I do want to mention, of course, that you may see forward-looking statements in today's presentations, and you may also see trademarks that are not endorsements. During my session today, of course, we will be covering a couple different elements of collaboration, and we do have some of my colleagues joining me today to help you over chat if you have any additional questions. Now, as I mentioned, my name is Anna, and I'm a product marketing manager here at Smartsheet. And for those of you that might be thinking, I sound a little bit familiar, during my day job, I run our Work Smart webinar program. And this is an ongoing program where you can go through Smartsheet onboarding, you can learn about different topics that we offer every couple weeks. And in your Engage resources, you will see a link to sign up if you'd like to join me for additional sessions, including a session next week where we'll recap all of the exciting capabilities that Smartsheet announced in today's Engage conference. Now, to talk about collaboration, Smartsheet, most of the time when people come to Smartsheet, it's because they need a way to work with their team, their organization, or maybe even external partners and collaborate on a sheet. Most people define that collaboration by sharing a sheet and let's work together. But as you spend more time working, you're going to realize you might want to collaborate in different ways. So some people might need full access. Some people you might just need to intake information from. And some people might need a little bit more help with reminders or alerts. And today we're going to talk about these different ways to collaborate. And we'll also take a look at which way is best for different scenarios. And our goal overall is to make sure that when you come to Smartsheet, when you're setting up your work, you know how to collaborate in the best way for each stakeholder that you're working with. So this will look at sharing a sheet, so really the most common way of collaboration, content collaboration being part of that, so attaching files, reviewing content, and approving. We'll look at how to create forms and intake information from other users for a request management process. And then we'll look at automation, which is going to help us in a couple different ways by keeping yourself on track, keeping others on track, sending reminders, and even moving or copying rows sheet to sheet. Lastly, once you have all of this going on, so once you have all of these collaborators working in your sheets, I'll show you a couple ways that you can keep track of what's going on by accessing your activity log or cell history within Smartsheet. Now, our workflow today, as I mentioned, is going to cover a couple different elements. So we're going to start with a form, which is going to allow you to define the information you need from someone. You can customize your form to gather exactly the information that's important and use conditional logic to show or hide certain questions depending on other form responses. This form is going to then add a row to your sheet. This is where we'll look at those additional methods of collaboration through sharing or content collaboration. And while all that is happening, even though we're working in a single sheet, we're going to approach this as a process. And this is where automation is going to come in, and we'll use automation to send alerts and reminders, taking a look at that during our session today, as well as actually move a row to create an archive process when our request is complete. So we're going to get started here in my request tracker sheet. And our request tracker sheet I've set up to capture exactly the information that I need. So this is a process where I manage a team, we're creating all kinds of assets for our organization. And instead of collaborating through email where people are pinging or emailing me saying, hey, I need this from you, I'm going to create a sheet and I'm going to create a form that anyone can access to submit a request. This allows me to define the information I need up front, taking care of a lot of that back and forth, and it allows me to really customize, define what's required, and you'll see I can simply drag and drop the columns that are in my sheet. And each column has the potential to become a field on the sheet that somebody can complete. Anytime that a row is submitted through a form, it's added either to the top or the bottom of my sheet as I define it. So you'll see I already have my form open here, and a form comes with a simple URL. And this is going to be great because you can embed a form into your Smartsheet dashboard. You can share it like you would any other website. You can include it in an email or in your email signature. And this allows users who want to request something from you to simply submit a form instead of trying to figure out the right way to go about things. Here, I'm going to submit a form to request assets for my Engage webinar that I'll be running the week after Engage, as I mentioned earlier. So I've completed all of the necessary information. Each of the fields that I'm being asked to complete corresponds to a column in the sheet, and I'll go ahead and click Submit. As I do this, back in my sheet, I can do a quick refresh, and you'll notice that my new row is going to be added. And that is right down here at the bottom. So before we start talking about what do we do now, I want to take a step back and talk about collaboration in this sheet in general. As I mentioned, the most common way of collaborating in Smartsheet is going to be simply to come up to my share button and start typing in email addresses or selecting users that I collaborate with. This is going to allow users to come into my sheet in real time. So any work that you're managing in Smartsheet, this is what I recommend because it ensures that your data is accurate. If someone's working bright and early, if someone's staying late, they can all update the same set of information and have access to that information anytime. And of course, you can define exactly the permissions they should have. We're also going to collaborate once you have that access by working in my sheet. So I have the columns, I have the rows set up so we can track all the information that's important. Because I'm working on content here, so this is a design team and we're creating assets for our organization, I'm also going to work in these collaboration columns on the left side of my sheet. So for some of my items, you'll see I have attached files that I'm working on, and this is a great way to share those assets with requesters. In some of my rows, I'm having conversations, which allows me to tag others and really use my sheet as a single source of truth, which is the key behind all of this collaboration. Everyone knows all the information we need is here, whether it's a file or a conversation that we need to capture. And lastly, we also have our proofing column. So you're not just attaching files, you're asking for reviews, you're adding annotations, and ultimately approving the work that was previously in progress. Here, we're going to talk about what happens once my new request that is submitted with the form has been added to my sheet. And one thing you might notice is up here in the top right in my notification center, I actually have a notification letting me know that a new row was added to my sheet. This is because I added automation. So far we can share our entire sheet with our team, and this is great for the team that's working really closely with it. We can complete a form that's going to allow anyone, even users without access to the sheet, to submit a row. And I've set up automation, which is going to allow you to tell Smartsheet, if this type of action that's important to me happens, let me know, or remind me, or send an update request or an approval request. There's a lot of options there. I've told Smartsheet anytime that a new row is added, let me know. And this allows me to not spend a lot of my time in my sheet because I don't have to keep refreshing it. I know Smartsheet will let me know when that happens. Also want to talk about additional options for automation. So in our Manage Workflows section, you'll see that I have a couple steps that I've created. I've asked Smartsheet that anytime a new row is added, please let me know. And I've also told Smartsheet down here at the bottom, anytime that I assign a task, let's let the user being assigned know as well. And this allows me to save time because I don't assign a task and then go ping or email that person. I know Smartsheet will own that step for me. So I'll come in here and I'm just going to assign it to myself and save. And while we're doing that, I want to talk about the last automation we've set up, which is an archive. And this is a way to use our move row automation, which allows me to tell Smartsheet when a specific action happens. In this scenario, I'm saying when a task is complete, let's move it to a different sheet. so I can really focus on what's important here in my Smartsheet. Now, I want to mention that we've looked at a couple different automations, and automations are pretty simple. They have 3 steps to them. So you're going to tell Smartsheet my trigger, what needs to happen in my sheet. So is a new row being added? Is a task being assigned? Or is a status being changed? Any conditions, so anything else that must be true, and what the automation should be. So do we want to alert? Do we want to ask for an update? Do we want to move or copy a row? Now, you'll notice in my notification center here, we do have a notification letting me know I've been assigned a task, and I want to toggle our last automation. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my status to complete and save my sheets. Now, once I've done that, Smartsheet automation is going to kick in and actually move this row, and we'll do a refresh here, and it has now left my sheet. And I've created a copy of this sheet that I've titled Archive Requests, and my row has been moved there now. So to kind of review what has happened over the course of this session, we've collaborated by sharing our sheet directly, we've collaborated on content in our left 3 columns, and we've set up automation to own our process. Lastly, automation also closed out our process. So it completely moved my row off of my sheet, allowing me to stay focused in my active request sheet. As you're working on all of this, I do want to point out there's going to be a couple things that are going to help you. First, history. Any cell that's been changed, which is going to happen through collaboration, I can go ahead and right-click and view my cell history, which shows a running tally of all of the changes with dates and timestamps, as well as who made them. And lastly, over on the right side of our page, we also have our activity log. And this is a running log of all the changes in my sheet, including all the actions that I took today. And of course, you can filter to find what's important and really make sure people are collaborating and track down who made certain changes. Now, let's close up for today by reviewing the workflow that we just went through, covering some of those resources that we have available for you here at Engage. So to review our workflow, we started out intaking data with a form, and a form allows us to both define information we need and make sure that anyone can collaborate by adding data to our form. In our sheet, we can collaborate directly in real time. We can collaborate on content and capture conversations, and we can use automation to drive our process. So instead of waiting for others or instead of me taking a lot of steps, I can have Smartsheet remind and alert when important things or dates are happening. I can request updates and approvals, and I can even move or copy rows based on changes in my sheet. And this way, Smartsheet is really moving my request from intake all the way to archive without me having to take those additional steps. Now, there are additional ways to share. So this is where, of course, you're going to collaborate in a sheet, use forms, and use automation, but we all work in really unique scenarios day to day. So you can publish either sheets, reports, or dashboards, and you can look for a globe icon in each of those items to publish. That allows users to access your sheets as a website. So publicly available, easy to share with the URL instead of going through that share button. This is typically most helpful when you're going to be creating a visual dashboard. You can share your sheet as a PDF, so creating a PDF and emailing it directly out of your Smartsheet. And you can create dashboards, which are going to allow you to customize a visual look into the work that you're managing in Smartsheet, incorporating data from your sheets and reports, incorporating visualizations, different content, and really customizing it to share exactly what's important. Lastly, you can print. So Smartsheet's all about that real-time collaboration, and I usually advise you to share through your sheet, through publishing, or through dashboards. But of course, if you need to print something out, that's available for you as well. Now, to review what we've done today, so to make sure you can collaborate with every stakeholder, share your work. So use that share button. Real-time collaboration is going to drive success for you more than all of these other options of printing or sending PDFs. Intake information. So if you are collecting requests in any capacity, create a form to manage it, and keep your work and your team on track and allow Smartsheet to own your process with automation. Lastly, stay on top of all of that by right-clicking on any cell to access history or by visiting the activity log over on the right side of your sheet. Now, before we finish up for today, Smartsheet Learning Center is going to be the best place to learn more about these different concepts we covered today. So you can learn in more detail how to create a form, how to set up an automation, and access those webinars that I mentioned is what I do day to day here at Smartsheet. And we do have a great training and certification team, as well as a Smartsheet community where you can connect with other Smartsheet users, see how they're using Smartsheet, what questions they have, and get help. For our session today, we have a couple Engage Brain Boosts that are going to help you as well, focused on collaboration, as well as using forms and reporting. Now, I want to thank you for joining me today. And as I mentioned, I am running a webinar about all of the Engage capabilities released today next week. So we hope you're able to join me for that as well.